So she's a community organizer, a municipal consultant, a lawyer by profession, who also holds a PhD in education policy. She's an ambitious young Nigerian-American from Chicago, and she's also the great challenger for the 55th mayor of Chicago, who is Rahm Emmanuel. So these elections are going to be 2015. Amara Enyia, actually, welcome to Sahara TV.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Okay, so I can call you Dr. Enya.
Yes, you can.
Okay, congratulations. And on your past birthday, how old did you turn?
I turned 31.
Okay, the big 30 and plus one.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to start because I need to break down your background. You are born to Nigerian parents, both.
Yes.
And you were born in Chicago.
I was actually born in Baltimore, Maryland, and we moved to the Chicago area here when I was very young, when I was still a baby.
Okay, and you also explained to me about your parents' involvement in the Nigerian politics. Can you just briefly explain to our viewers how they were involved and to what level?
Well, my parents were involved. They've been involved in, I guess, political activities since before the Civil War and leading up to the Civil War in Nigeria. So initially, my dad was, and my mom were involved in the Biafra War because of the issues around genocide that were taking place in the Southeast region. And they talk a lot about the oppression that was happening and that being the reason why they decided to get involved in that war. After the war, their activism continued against several different regimes in Nigeria. So we had a dictator, we had a number of dictators since that time. We had Ibrahim Babangida, we had General Sani Abacha, and throughout their tenures, my parents, even after they left Nigeria and came to the United States, were involved in organizing the Nigerian community to basically protest and push back against those dictatorships. My father was the president of the Nigerian National Alliance, which in the 90s was one of the premier organizations in the country for Nigerians. And he was organizing that community against, at the time it was General Sani Abacha. He and his colleagues, they wrote a blueprint for Nigeria's democracy. They protested the executions that had taken place in 1997. At that time, journalists were being killed, people were disappearing, human rights activists were being executed. And so he organized protests and organized essentially to bring not only the Nigerian community, but the American community. And he was also responsible for getting the governments in the UK, in France, Germany, and other countries to recognize the human rights violations that were taking place.
Oh, so no more wonder you've been kind of like mobilized to also take that position and work around the community. So now you have surprised quite a lot of people because the person you're trying to take on in this 2015 elections is Rahm Emmanuel. And of course, people are going to say, who's this 31-year-old who thinks that she can stand against such a character, you know? And I'll just quote some of your words. You say that the political system needs to be obliterated and we need something new and different. And this is you speaking to InTheseTimes.com. And you say also the status quo doesn't work, at least it doesn't work for too many people. Now we have a unique opportunity to chart a new path. How do you intend to do that?
Well, I think, the hallmark of what the statements that you just read back is the need to really transform the political system. And anyone who knows anything about Chicago knows that we have a very interesting brand of politics, and a reputation for being, for a lot of negative things. There are a lot of negative connotations when we talk about the Chicago political system, the Chicago way, and things of that nature. And so we really, from my understanding, a lot of the policy issues that we want to address have to take place. The place to start really transforming what those policy areas can look like is in transforming the nature of the political system itself. And so that means that we, some of the values we talk about: transparency in government, open government that's accountable to the public, values of integrity and leadership, values of equity and policy. We have to, the real question is for the people of Chicago to begin to ask, what are the criteria that we want in our leadership? And I think part of the issue is that because we had Mayor Daley for 22 years.
Right.
And so he became an institution. Chicago and Mayor Daley were synonymous.
Right.
And so in 2011, we really didn't take the opportunity to think critically about what kinds of characteristics do we want in our leadership and what values do we want our leaders to have.
Right.
So now we have, under the current mayor, we know what those values are. We know that it's about privatization of public assets. We know that it's about creating a polarizing climate that pits one part of the city against the other. Mm-hmm. We know that it's about really not engaging or really paying any attention to the neighborhoods. So we know that those are the values that represent our leadership. And the key is we have to make sure that we're electing leaders who have values that we identify.
Yeah, and you have an experience working with, obviously, Mayor Richard Daley some time ago, and you did a fellowship with him. And you also are a consultant in the municipal organization there. So people would think that you have some kind of inclination and qualification. But then Chicago is quite a tough city, I mean, in all aspects. So how do you then feel like the challenge of such a city would fall right into your lap? How do you, aim to tackle that?
Well, it's definitely a challenge, but it can be done, and I think it's actually imperative that the change that I'm talking about and that this campaign represents take place. We cannot. I think the worst thing we can do is that because of the size of the challenge or the nature of the challenge, that we sit back or we decide that we're going to disengage because it just seems like too much to undertake. And so I want to push against that. I think we have a responsibility as people who live in the city to do everything possible to make sure that we're able to take advantage of this city and for it to be as great as it can be. And so I'm really not fazed by the challenge. I'm really not fazed by the scale and scope of the work. I think that, when you see it in front of you, you just start working. And my goal is to really, through this campaign, is to encourage people to feel that they actually have a sense of self-efficacy, that they can do, that together we can actually change the city. We can actually begin to tackle some of these deep-rooted issues that we see in the city.
Okay, so now we'll go and speak about immigration, and I think this is one of those contentious, issues that affect mostly, I would say, a lot of undocumented illegal immigrants, as they're called, and Africans are some of those. And Chicago is, I think, the fifth city within the United States that holds a lot of African immigrants, and their problems have been lack of like driver's licenses. They don't have any bank accounts. They don't have any form of ID, and yet they contribute. They work. They pay taxes, and also stay out of trouble. And the question would be, since you have an African background in that sense, what are you bringing to the table to make sure that their issues are heard? Because in the past, people have considered immigration as an issue for Latinos, for the Chinese. Now, the Africans will come to the table. What plans do you have to help out this community?
Well, one of the challenges is making sure that people understand that immigration impacts a broad array of groups. And so it's not relegated to being an issue that's only salient to Hispanics, salient to individuals in the Latino community, that it does, in fact, include immigrants from the continent, from Africa, from the many different countries, from India, from Southeast Asia. So we really have to expand the scope of who is impacted by debates around immigration policy. And so that's one challenge, I think, is that the focus is so narrow as though it only impacts those in the Hispanic community, when that's simply not the case. I identify very much so with the immigrant community as the child of immigrants, and understanding what it takes when you arrive in a country and you're trying to make your way. You're trying to make it work. You're working hard. You're doing everything possible to try to make a way to survive. And so I identify very closely with that struggle. I think we have to, part of the benefit of Chicago. I mean, we pride ourselves on our neighborhoods, and in fact, one of my favorite characteristics of this city is that we have such a rich culture. We have so many rich cultures, and they are represented in our neighborhoods. So I can go to the Northwest Side and be in the Polish community. I can go to the Southwest Side in La Vita, Little Village, and be in the Mexican community. I can go to the West Side and be in Humboldt Park in the Puerto Rican community. I can go up to the North Side and be where all the Africans are, whether they're Nigerian, Ethiopian, so on and so forth. And so we have this rich culture this rich culture of immigrants who've come here, who've established these fantastic communities. How do we make sure that we appreciate that? And part of it is making sure that we do everything possible to ensure that people who come here have an opportunity to make their way. They have an opportunity to get access to jobs, to get access to resources, to get access to services that can help ease their transition as they're moving into the city. And that also includes our entrepreneurs. I mean, we understand that immigrants that come here and seek to open up businesses, how can we make sure that they're able to open up businesses in our community so that we can hire people from our communities locally who will be employed? These are very real issues. And so they're very salient to me because I've in part lived that experience, but also I'm very much connected in that community, in those communities.
Okay. So, Dr. Enya, right? We're going to keep watching because 2015 is just around the corner. Well, so we're going to keep watching your campaign and also following through that campaign and the elections as well. And so this is just an intro and to say hello. But thank you very much for coming to Sahara TV.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was Dr. Enya and Amara Enyia. She's a Nigerian-American running for the 2015 Chicago mayoral position. This is Fungai Maboreke, Sahara TV. Stay tuned for more programming.